Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to Tomato Talk Live. This is our March 2025 episode. I am Lauren,
And I am Jen.
and it's nice to be back. It feels like forever since we've had a show. I know it's only been a month, but it
Yeah,
feels like forever.
I know, but it has. And you've been away.
I've
So
been
I've been
away.
really missing you.
I miss you too. I miss all of you guys. I got back yesterday. I was going to do a Lauren's Tomato Awesome Sauce, which is my Thursday show. But we had like a 5 a.m. flight. And by the time I got home, I'm like, no, next week. But we're so happy to be with you all. We have a great guest who probably doesn't need introduction. We'll get to him in a minute. But Craig LeHoullier is here with us. He's the author of Epic Tomatoes and Growing
Straw
Vegetables and Straw Bales. I think this is his fourth appearance on the show, right, Jen?
Yes, four
Yeah.
times. We're so lucky.
We kind of told him, I think after our first episode, when the three of us became best friends, of course, that he's got an welcome anytime. We were talking a couple of weeks ago, and
He's just got to say the word, and we're like, yes.
yeah, we're not going to turn him down. Whether you're new to growing tomatoes and have never started seeds before, or perhaps you've always purchased starts from a store and this is your first time starting from a seed, or if you're just curious, or if you've been growing for 30 years, we always get something out of Craig's visits with us. Jen and I just do this and we just let him go.
I was just going to say, so let's just sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea, and start listening.
Before we bring him on, Jen, did you have anything? I forgot to ask you this before the show about the Shamrock seed swap. Did you want to say anything about?
I'm sending them out. Today I sent half of them, and tomorrow I'll send the rest, but it's done.
Thank you.
Yay.
How many participants did you have this year?
I think there was 95, 96. Wow. It was a lot. I spent all day yesterday looking at the packets, making sure that I wasn't giving them the same thing they sent, and counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Ben's trying to watch TV, and he comes in the room talking to me. I'm 4, 5, 6 because.
So if you guys don't know what we're talking about, Jen and I run a group on Facebook, a community. Sounds much better than a group. We're much more than just your standard Facebook group. We really are a collective. We're all about education, and we do swap seeds if you would like, but we do so much else, like our live show here. So if you're not a member of our community, if you don't like Facebook, join just to be a member of our community. If you love tomatoes, you will love it there.
You'll make friends.
You will make friends very quickly. And Jen, this is her third or fourth year. I mean, our group's only 2 years old, but you ran it elsewhere before this.
I did it once in another
group we don't mention. But
I brought it to this one.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jen.
It's the third year. I said I brought it to this one. So it's the third year. So yeah.
So people send in seeds, and Jen collects them all, and then she sends them out, and she does an amazing job. So thank you, Jen, for doing that.
Thank you.
And if it's your first time watching our show, welcome. We are a live show because we love answering your questions live, and especially with somebody like Craig being here, it's so great that he's able to, answer in real time, answer your questions. No question is stupid. There are no such things as stupid questions. We all started somewhere, so please don't be embarrassed. Generally, we're going to be talking about seed starting today, but anything tomato related, you're welcome to ask. We're also giving away a couple prizes tonight. John, once again, a member of our group, is giving away 2 copies of Epic Tomatoes, one hardcover
thank you
version and a soft cover version. So thank you,
John. Cool.
So generous.
John, you're amazing.
And I'm going to give away, since I'm all caught up with my trades finally, I'm going to give away 2 seed packets at the end too. So all you have to do to win is type in #tomato in the comments, and we'll do a drawing at the end of the episode. We do try to get to all of your comments and try to get you on screen, but especially with a night like tonight with Craig, we've already got 91 live viewers just a couple minutes into the show. So we do try to get everybody on screen, but it's kind of difficult. Hi, Cindy, 7 a.m. here from the Philippines. All right, so without further ado, let's bring on the man, our best friend, Craig LeHoullier.
Hello.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yes,
so
some
he's
of
a
you are
seed
saying
right
here.
there.
Some of you are saying here he is again. Because anybody who sat
No,
through my 45 minutes in the
no,
yard with dogs barking and all that stuff, but it was chilly out there, man. And I just wanted to make one initial comment. All of this seed sending and packing, man, it takes forever and it's work, and
Mhm.
but it is very worthwhile to do. And I suspect it's as worthwhile to send them out as it is to receive and grow them.
I agree.
More
I think,
so, I think.
yeah, I think I had 120 emails in my
Oh,
2025 seed request folder, and each one of those was two, three, four, or five different varieties, and that means, going through. I, I, I have no idea where a lot of these things are. So each request takes line, but I'm picturing them going through the mail and ending up somewhere and being planted in someone's garden. So that's how we keep these varieties going, and that's how we spread the love, the gardening love. So well done,
It is.
you guys, for doing this.
And well, thank you. But I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to recognize you on our last show, which I think you haven't been on since October, if I'm
Right.
right. You offered to our viewers to just shoot you an email, and you would send out seeds. You particularly talked about a cross that you're working on, Captain Lucky and Sun Gold.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like you said, you've had a couple hundred, and I know Jen probably got the same as me. I got so many comments from people
Mm.
taking pictures of the envelope from Craig LeHoullier, like, look what I've
yes.
got.
Yeah.
So thank you,
I
Craig.
took pictures of mine too.
They're going to be a lot of fun, and we may, after we get into the show a little, we may want to come back to this and talk in specifics about those two, the Captain F1 and Captain F2, what those designations mean, what to
Right.
expect. And the F2 has given some people some problems, and I kind of knew it would, because they were saved from tomatoes that were picked green and had to be ripened indoors, and it took a month. They were
Mm.
not, and I got 90%, 10
Oh, good.
seeds, 9 plants, but a couple of people who got some, and they're really good gardeners, haven't gotten any yet. So I'm worried
Okay.
that the seeds are small. They're going to have to be planted very shallow and misted and really watched. And we'll see how it goes. If I've sent you the F1, grow it and save tons of seed, because that will then give you F2s to play around with. But that's detail we'll get into later. So you guys let me know where you want to
Could,
leap first.
could you, for anybody that may not realize what an F1, F2
Hmm.
is, could you just briefly talk about
Yeah.
what that is? That would be great.
So an F1 is a hybrid, the seeds of which are created in the fruit when you take pollen from one parent and apply it to the flower of the mother. So let's say for sun gold, you take pollen from, and they're secret, we don't know. Captain may give us a little bit of insight into what the parents of sun gold are, because
Hmm.
Captain is a three-way cross. It's Captain Lucky times Sun Gold, and Sun Gold is parent A times parent B.
Right.
So it's kind of A times parenthesis B times C, which means the outcome is going to be very, very complex and very, very varied. So let's take two that we know. Let's say I take Cherokee Purple and go up to a flower and get some pollen, and then I go to Lillian's Yellow and remove the anthers and dab the tip of the pistil into that. So the fruit will develop. And if all goes well, the seeds in that will be the F1 hybrid between the two parents. And if you plant them, you'll get it's like sun gold, a packet of sun gold seeds. Every seed in that packet comes from a handmade cross, which is why they're more expensive.
Right.
They'll be uniform. If the cross took, you don't need to plant more than a couple of plants, um, but then save lots of seed, because the F2 generation, you will get something like mom, something like dad, and lots of variants in between. The F1 will always show all of the dominant traits of the two parents. So Cherokee Purple has red flesh, regular leaf foliage. Lillian's Yellow has yellow flesh, um, clear skin. Both have clear skin and potato leaf foliage. Well, the regular leaf foliage is dominant, the red flesh is dominant, and so you end up with a pink tomato, clear skin over red flesh. We did this in October, and it's a lot of fun. So we'll do Once we start seeing results of some of the seeds I sent out, we can come back together and start comparing July or August what people got. And are
That'd
there
be fun.
surprises in it? Is it stuff that's expected? So yeah, F1, first filial generation, is the seeds in the tomato that the cross is applied to. So you never have that many. If you make a cross, it's just the tomatoes that's in that one ripe seed, meaning if you want to share them with people, you've only got maybe 40 or 50 seeds to share. Then if you grow that out, that F2 is the seed saved from growing out the hybrid. And then you just add a letter. If you find something you like from there, F3 seeds are then in the fruit and you grow that out the next year, F4, F5, and so on. All of the Dwarf Tomato Project varieties were taken out probably to an F7, F8 generation so that we can ensure that they show really, really good uniformity and stability.
Great. So you mentioned sun gold
Yep.
and they're being more expensive. So sun gold, no matter how you slice it and dice it, if you want true sun gold, you have to purchase the F1 hybrid
Yep.
of sun gold. A lot of people say, I grew it out, I got a tomato, and you will, but you're not going to get officially a sun gold. It might
No.
look the same, it won't taste exactly the same, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of Sun Gold selections out there.
Mhm.
Somebody is selling Sun Gold Select 2. I'm sure
Right.
other people are finding things. Just doesn't have quite the same unique flavor. And so there's something about that particular cross that makes the hybrid greater than the sum of the two
Right.
parts. And we never know because we don't know what those two parts are. Um, just one of those things. We
Right.
never know what the parents of any hybrid is unless we make the hybrid ourselves. So,
Right, right. And if you are looking to save seeds and swap seeds in communities like ours, you can't grow, or you can grow and save the seeds from sun gold, but you won't be sharing the real sun gold.
right.
So some vendors will advertise that grown out an F1 and they're selling F2 seeds.
Mm,
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that personally.
no. And I get nervous when seed libraries give away hybrid seeds and then hope that people grow it and bring it back in because
Right,
now it's no longer the variety that they've taken. It's who knows.
right,
It's an experiment waiting to happen is what it is.
right. So, hi, Kim. Glad you're here. Um, yes, please feel free if you have any specific questions for Craig about. Oh, we'd have a joke. What did the tomato say to the
Oh yeah.
pecker? I don't know. Let's see. Oh, you're not as cool as me. I like it.
Okay.
Thanks, Chef D.L. Turner.
Yes, that rings the bell. All right.
Yeah,
So
so
bell pepper joke.
let's get into seed starting. So for Jen and I, we were talking before the show, it's still too early for us in our zones to be starting tomato seeds. And the three of us were talking before this show. A lot of people, it's so exciting. You choose your varieties, you get your grow list, and you dying to start. But a lot of people make the mistake, and I used to do it too, starting too early.
Is the good, the one good thing is that tomatoes can always be saved. So if you start early, you'll get leggier plants, so you have to decide how to manage them. But if worse comes to worse, and let's look at some of the slides, and then we'll get into some of the
Okay.
pitfalls. But you can always, if a plant is like 12 inches and really slender, you can always cut the top 6 inches off, reroot it, and then start your plant from scratch again. You'll just lose a little bit of time because it will be that rerooting time. But yeah, timing, and I'll go into timing in one of my slides to help guide people along on when they do want to start. Now is a fine time for scallions and kale and things like that. Oh, who the hell
Who
is
is
that?
this little nugget of cuteness?
Cutie pie.
Yeah, that's little Eli. So Sue and I were just so delighted that our daughter Caitlin, who lives in Fletcher, that's about 15 minutes from us, she and her boyfriend Jason had Eli. Caitlin's 39, so this is probably going to be our first and only grandson, but he was 9 pounds 3 ounces. He's gaining about
Big
two
boy.
pounds. Yeah, he's a big boy. He is a good boy. So we get 6 or 8 hour blocks to babysit him while Caitlin and Jason can go out and do some hiking and things. We've only heard him cry for like 5 minutes once or
Wow.
twice. He looks at us, he smiles, he makes funny
You must
noises.
be very cute.
I we've heard that big babies sometimes can be a little bit calmer, and
Really?
yeah,
Hmm.
we've heard that. Now, no, I'm not sure what it is, but so yes, that's the joy in our life right now, and that's another reason to make my gardens a little bit smaller because to be able to have time to spend with Eli, so he becomes a gardener and a guitar player
Yeah.
and a cook and all of these things that I want to teach him as he's
Oh
growing up.
gosh, can you imagine Craig LeHoullier teaching his grandson how to garden? I'm like, he's still my heart.
There will over the next 10 years there will be pictures. Don't worry.
Oh,
Sure. Well,
so
congratulations
sweet.
on becoming a grandfather,
Well,
Craig.
thank you.
Yes,
He
congratulations.
is kind of a pretty baby, and
He's really cute.
my wife's
He's adorable.
brother-in-law, actually, I get these. It's her nephew, and his wife just had a baby too. So we've got babies in the family right now, and that's kind of cool. So anyway, let's see what else I've got to share with you
Oh, well, it's
guys.
tough to move on past this, but okay.
Yeah, bye, Eli. We'll see you later. So this is a picture of what's behind me, and you probably can't see all that well, but there are some
Look at the
flats.
babies.
Yeah, there's babies back there. There's babies everywhere. I've got uh, I've got like a nice little crib right here. This is the baby's room and my office and where I grow seedlings. Um, so everything is up and growing well, and that's a window. And you may say, "Well, is that enough light?" Well, the truth is, tomatoes do not need light to germinate. What they need, and think about it: you're planting this seed and you're covering it with soil, so you're blocking the light anyway. Only very few types of seeds actually need light, and I think petunias may be one, and there are certain flowers that so the light, you need some light because once they pop out of the seed, you want them to grow somewhat upward, although they're going to do the phototropism thing and bend to the light. So I can't leave them back there very long. But let's look at the next slide. That's just what they look like today. I just have to take one pause to mention this is the 50-year anniversary of
Oh,
the Seed
wow.
Savers
Oh,
Exchange.
wow, really?
If the Seed Savers Exchange didn't form in 1975, then we'd all be getting together talking about Better Boy and Celebrity. Um,
Mm,
and that would be it. Wow, I've got 3
that's,
tomatoes in my
yeah.
garden this year. So, Seed Savers Exchange provided the mechanism for gardeners that were in tiny little hovels all over the country. They had addresses so they could share these seeds. And then if people loved them, they would get them into seed catalogs. And this whole thing of seed saving and then amateur breeding, everything started from this. They started this at a time where hybrids were becoming so super dominant in seed companies that we were losing our older
Mm.
pollinated varieties left and right. So a big shout out to the seed savers on their anniversary.
Way to
Yes.
go. Way
Yay.
to go.
We're all very grateful for them and for
They're
these
Thank you
amazing.
exciting
for saving
varieties
us
to
from
stick
all better boys.
Better Boy's not bad, but there's more to life than a red
Right.
tomato, right?
Yes, there is.
All
No,
right.
absolutely.
So let's see what's next here. All right. So, I used to be there was a woman named Daryl Pullis who used to have a podcast, probably the first one I was on. She was in Georgia. And she used to say, Craig, I love you on my shows because you like to break rules. And she saw the dense planting technique as one of my first, and it's not mine. I didn't invent it. I just used it with great lust and talked about it and showed it.
Yeah, you talk about it in your book. That was the first time I'd seen it when I got this
Yeah,
book, and I'm like, "What is that?"
because it really allowed me, with no greenhouse and just a sunny window with a few heat mats, to produce 2 to 3,000 plants in a 1 by 2 foot footprint and have them all survive to plants I could sell or plant. So anyway, that was a picture taken by Stephen Garrett for Epic Tomatoes, actually. So let's look at and some of the wording in these slides may not be perfect. I'll use these for for some of my talks. But this is a really good slide because this shows timing. So the one on the right, plant out, that's an important date. And that's when you're beyond your last frost date. Now, it's not, you always can get a surprise frost come in, and that's when you get your remay out or your pots to cover your plants with. But for the most part, you're 98% sure that plants can be, like peppers, eggplants, and tomatoes, can be set out without them being killed. 1 month prior to that, you're doing the transplant boogie in your garage. You're separating all these little babies out, putting them in individual plants. So I have a May 1st plant out date. That means I expect to be transplanting around April 1st. Takes about a month to get from a tiny little seedling with the cotyledons all pushed in to a nice 4, 5, 6 inch plant. It's not going to look like the people that have the greenhouses, the farmers market, that are hawking these 2 foot tall plants, and you bring the poor things home and the root ball is about that big and the plant undergoes transplant shock. 3 or 4 inch seedlings are like a perfect size, and they don't skip a beat. They get in, they expand, and they'll catch up to
They do. Jen and I were talking about that last month when we talked about our seed
Yep.
starting.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, like weeks, something I planted, May 1st, or started seeds May 1st and April 1st. They all come out in the
Yep.
wash. It's really kind of
Yep.
amazing.
And a lot of it is
Yep.
because tomato tops, the visible part of a tomato plant, don't really start growing until the soil gets warm. So if the roots are
Oh,
sitting in cool soil, the plant won't die. It will just sit there and look at you and go, "You expect me to grow in
Mhm.
this?"
right.
And if you wait and put your plant out a little later, it will almost completely catch right up. Then I work
Yeah.
backwards a month, and that's when I plant my seed. So I planted my seed on March 1st. I have tried all kinds of different dates long ago, and you end up with the leggy plants. You don't know where to put them. It's way too cold out to harden them off. But that's a guideline, and you adjust that to whatever your climate is and your dates are. So the calendar and the weather app is one of your most important tools, and knowledge of your microclimate in your yard. So if the weatherman says, even in your town, it's going to go to 35 tonight, but you're living in a cool microclimate and you put a thermometer out there, you may find it gets to 29. So you really got to watch for that. That's how you can lose lots of seedlings, by trusting that it's not going to frost because the weatherman says it won't.
We had a
And
May
it does.
17th frost 2 years ago, and
Yep.
I made the
Mm.
mistake of putting them outside about a week earlier than I should have. And thankfully, I thought I lost two. They ended up bouncing back, but
Yeah.
I think it's a myth that
It's
people
so
think if
hard.
you start a week, or if you start a week or two earlier, you're going to get earlier tomatoes. And who doesn't want an early tomato? I mean, it tastes great.
Yeah.
It's just
But
an earlier headache, I think.
Yeah. And you're also getting into the myth of the days to maturity that are in seed catalogs, because let's say a tomato says 75 days to maturity. How big is the transplant? What is the temperature like? How many hours of sun is it getting? So in Raleigh, with really hot summers, I've had Cherokee Purple come in 60 days. I've had Lillian's Yellow come in 70 days.
hmm,
In real cool years, I've had Cherokee Purple come in 80 days and Lillian's Yellow come in 100 days. So those days to maturity are going to be very, very much impacted by how big the seedling is when you transplant it, what you're planting it in. A black plastic container is going to advance a plant much faster than cool soil. So anyway, we're getting a little bit off topic, but it's hard for me to not bring up little tidbits that I've
yeah,
learned along the way.
we
So
actually
let's
have a comment here. Oop, I didn't mean to cover
Absolutely,
you up,
Rob.
Craig. From
I was
Staying
about to
Homegrown
do this
yeah.
Illinois.
one too.
What's that?
I just read that comment and I was looking for it. I was like, I gotta put this one on the screen. Great
Yeah.
minds, Lauren.
Starting
Great
too early
minds.
is a nightmare.
Yeah.
I know, we are twins. Is
Yeah.
based on risk of
Mhm.
disease with not good air circulation, wasted energy and resources, especially time. Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah,
And I
because
have,
you got like,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No,
Oh,
no.
I was gonna say because if you're gonna get one of those cold snaps and you've taken everything out to, you've taken all your trays out and then it's about to get colder. You gotta bring them all back inside again. And it's
Oh,
just like, ah.
Yeah.
when I was doing seedlings in Raleigh and had 100 flats in my driveway, when we would get a true frost risk, I would have to bring all of those 100 flats into the garage and take
See,
up every surface. There was an interesting comment there about disease and air circulation, and I've found with seedlings, disease problems most often come on if you're not using a good sterile soilless mix. And because there's a lot of disease spores in lower quality seed starting, and that can lead to damping off, and that can lead to some uh, disease looking leaves. Here's another really weird one. Some tomato varieties look ugly as hell until it gets warm outside. So Gloria's Treat, Herman Johnson, Yellow Oxheart, Anna Russian, and it's genetic. There are certain tomato varieties, particularly heart-shaped ones,
Ox hearts, yeah.
that cannot metabolize nutrients until it gets warm. And so if you start those too early, you can actually lose your plants because the cotyledons get brown spots, they dry on the edges, they fall off, and that starts working up the plant. You got to get those in the heat and the sun really quickly to
Yeah.
remedy that. And these are the things that after doing this for 40 years, you look at them, and Carolyn Mail and I used to call that crud. It's because the cotyledon edges look cruddy. And the worst offender is yellow oxheart. That is a very tough tomato to get into a healthy state. Now, once you plant it, it becomes a monster,
Right.
but it's
And I
just,
think a lot of people, and Brad's Atomic Grape is actually one of those. It looks wispy. I think Curtis Cheek
Mm-hmm.
was the same thing. I saw you're growing that this year,
yeah,
Craig. It looks like it's dead. It looks like it needs water. So you
yeah,
overwater and then it gets edema and it's
yeah,
just a nightmare. So if you
yeah,
go into it knowing that hearts often look
yeah.
terrible before outside, that's
And even the long paste types like Opalka, they don't look, speckled Roman, a lot of these. So if you have a question on this, ask. And this is where I answer a lot of emails in the spring. My seedling looks like this. Here's a picture. Why? And I say, what are you growing? And they tell me, and I'm like, of course it does, because that has a genetic trait to look ugly as anything. Get it out in the sun quick. You can't treat every tomato variety like it's just a tomato. You have to understand that each variety has its own distinctive set of packet of genes, and and the more you grow, the more you start recognizing. So if I have a Cherokee Purple planted next to a mortgage lifter at this point, I can look at those two regular leaf seedlings, and just from subtle shapes in the leaves, I know which is which. But that you have to grow lots of varieties over 20 or 30 years and remember this stuff. It has to be interesting to you to remember this stuff. My wife would say, "Oh yeah, there's two tomato plants," but I can't make a quilt or knit like she can. So we all have these different things. Well, let's look at what comes up next here.
before we move on, I want to give to you guys. Craig wrote a new blog post today on his website, which is craiglehoulier.com, and it talks about all the seeds he's been starting. I just put the link in the comments.
Good.
But if you
I
go to
screenshotted all.
craiglehoulier.com, you'll see it there.
It's crazy. I've been keeping a blog since about 2016 or so. I really have no idea who reads it. And Instagram actually has given me a way to point people towards it because I do try to cram a lot of information, but I also recognize that some people are visual learners. They do better with an Instagram live. Some actually like to read a blog. My wife thinks your blogs are way too boring and long. Nobody's going to read that, but it's just how we take in information, and it's going to vary all over the place.
Yep,
I do the blog just as much for me as you guys because it gives me a place to
a
park.
record.
It gives
Yeah.
me a record
Right.
and what I'm thinking about that day and what I'm noticing. So let's see where we are next here.
Okay, I've got this. I think this is the next one. Does that look
It
like the
looks,
one you wanted?
oh, yeah, yeah, there you are. So look at my first line. It's okay to plant seeds thickly. And this is the breakthrough of the Dwarf Tomato Breeding Project, because if you've got a 50 cell plug flat and plant one seeds in each, they'll grow and you'll have 50 potential tomato plants in a 1 by 2 foot space. But if you plant 25 seeds per cell, then what is 50 times 25? And sometimes 50 seeds per cell, where you're at 2,500. You have to do a lot of transplanting later, but this is an efficiency. They're just things you have to pay attention to. I do this for peppers, eggplants, beets, greens, lettuce, herbs, small seeded flowers. I thick plant everything except things that you really should direct seed, like beans, cucumbers, melons, squash. They're so fast from seed. It just doesn't pay to pre-grow them or to buy a plant when you can just stick a seed in and it's up in 3 or 4 days.
Yep.
Sterile mixes. So I love sun grow. Metro mix or propagation mix. And propagation mix is also known as their sunshine mix number 5. I can go to my local ag store. I can call them up and say, can you order me 2 bags each of 830 in propagation? In about a week is there. It's about $20 for 2.8 cubic feet. That's a lot of mix. I went through 40 bags a year when I was in Raleigh doing my seedlings, because I don't only seed start in them, I transplant in them. They're sterile, they're light, they're fluffy, they absorb water well, they drain well. I've never lost a seedling to plant to damping off using these products. So that's a really big, that's the main frustration. Lauren, you said something early on. Why do we want to learn how to start seeds? Because you could go to your local big box store or nursery and find 20 types of tomato plants, or maybe 40. Or you can go to the Seed Savers Exchange yearbook and choose amongst 12,000. So seed starting gives you the control over the diversity of what you grow in your garden. And if your friends are doing breeding projects, you can grow what they've got. So I think it's fun. I'm sure you two
Yes.
guys think it's fun.
Yes.
It is.
Oh, yes.
It becomes addictive. You can't wait to
Hmm.
see them. So I plant my seeds, and then 3 days later, it's like, well, I'm not going to make the coffee right away. I'm going to run in here, get my flashlight, pull up the plastic, get my pad, and start seeing.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So if you look at this page, it's the name of the tomato and its code. This is where it's reverse. And I've got the number of the vial, I've got the number of seeds I planted, and then I've got the date that it comes up, the date of germination. And I track
Ooh.
this, and I find that this year I've found that right around 10 or 11 years, you get a really steep drop off in germination. And I'm storing just behind me in coin envelopes at room temperature. So I'm not doing
I
refrigerated.
saw a little bit in your picture of your seedlings. I think it was in your blog post, and I was just like, "Oh, to be in that room, just
I
rifling
know.
through."
It is so much fun. So
It is.
so another key step. So I fill my plug flat. Now you can use yogurt containers with holes punched in the bottom. You can use anything that holds soil. You can soil block if you want, although I've never gone in that direction because I'm not sure how well Metromix will hold together, and I'm just doing things in such large quantities. But I fill my plug flats, and I've kept these. I get them from Johnny's, 50 cell stiff plastic. I've had some for 15 years. So I don't like to buy a lot of plastic, but when you can keep it and use it for most of your gardening life, then it's worthwhile.
Right.
Fill it within about a half an inch with the Metromix. Wet it with, I like warm water because it goes in more quickly, and really saturate it.
Mhm.
I sprinkle the seeds on top, and then I take more mix, and sometimes I'll sieve it if there's chunks in it. All I do is barely cover the seed. They're about 1/32 of an inch deep. You get, and then I mist, and then I cover it with saran wrap. So let's look at the next slide here.
By the way, I just happened to look up. We have our all-time record for live viewers right now. 130
Wow,
live
look at
Oh
that.
viewers.
my gosh!
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome,
Hi
welcome,
That's
everybody.
everybody.
exciting.
Hi folks, and thanks so much. So this is how quick, and they're sitting on a constant temperature heat mat that just, I think they're like $20 on Amazon or less,
Mhm.
and they raise the temperature to about 85 degrees. So this is a type of tomato seeds were planted February 28th, and this is what it looks like on March 6th. So most of these tomatoes came up in 3 to 4 days. Basil and lettuce come up in 1 to 2 days. So it is just, you feel like if you sit there, you could just watch it germinate. Um, so let's look at and there's some blanks there, because if you're planting 50 types of tomatoes saved all different years, you know that some are likely not to come up, or you may get seed from someone who didn't save it properly. So that's okay. But once the majority of what's in there come up, you're ready to do the next step. Sometimes you'll harden this off, and the sun's rays, just the heat on the top of the soil, will wake up some seed. Now, I've had tomato seeds take 20 or 30 days to germinate if they're quite old, and you have to nurse them. Old, old seed produces weak looking seedlings, and you can get them to be perfectly good plants, but you have to give them a little more TLC along the way. So
Exciting.
let's look at what's next.
By the way, guys, I'm going through and marking all the questions that I can find. We'll save them for
Yeah,
after
great.
this, just to not break things up. And he may be covering stuff that you've
Yeah,
got in your questions.
good. All right. So you see one where I've got the loose saran wrap, and if you've got saran wrap on your seedlings, you're keeping the moisture near the seeds, but you have to flip it every day because what you don't want is that moisture to build up too much and start getting like downy mildew, mold growing on the surface of your soil. So I just flip it once a day. That puts the wet side up, the dry
That's a
side
good
down.
idea.
And it works fine. I could use a dome, but I'm cheap, frugal, whatever you want to call it. I just use what came to mind, and this has worked great for me. And when you're done with it, the only thing is it can frustrate you because anybody who's tried to put a saran wrap over a bowl knows if you don't rip it off right, it starts sticking to itself, and then you
Mhm.
might just roll it up, swear, throw it away, and start again. Um, so here we are. Now the next slide. What do you do next? It's got to have light. And you can either do LEDs, which I've not really delved into yet because I've still got a whole lot of fluorescent shop lights that I brought from Raleigh with us. They run cool. You can lower them within 1 inch of the tops of the seedlings. That means your little seedlings aren't going to get leggy. They're not going to reach for the light if you've got all of that light right there for them. If you do use LED lights, really read blogs, read the directions, talk to other gardeners about what distance you set the lights from the plants because they are more intense. And if you get some types of LEDs too close, they will burn your
Right.
seedlings. But this is a cool garage. It can get down to 38 degrees. Tomatoes really don't care as long as they don't frost. However, you will start developing some purple foliage if you're keeping your seedlings cool because they don't take up, I don't know if it's phosphorus or potassium, but one of those elements aren't taken up under cool conditions.
There's
And
a question in here about somebody had already started their seeds and
yep,
they had purple
yeah,
foliage.
Wanted
Wants
to
to
know if
know
it
if it's something to
was
be concerned
nope,
about.
perfectly fine. And in fact, sun gold, which I swear must have a tropical derived element to the parents, that is the purplest of all. That really does not like cool weather. But once you get it out into the sun and the temperature warms up, the purple goes away, the nutrients go back up into the plant. So then the next slide shows what I'm doing more often now. I'm playing Russian roulette. I'm picking days where it's 45 degrees, very light breeze, no rain, and I'm letting them sit in filtered light. This is light coming through some white pines we have. First day, an hour or two. Second day, 2 or 3 hours. Third day, 3 or 4 hours. By the end of a week, I'm starting to ease them into full sun. Just watch the watering because if you start getting sunlight on these plants, especially if there's a light breeze blowing and you've got so many seedlings in a cell, they'll suck up that water faster. So I've got a watering can out there. I don't worry about bottom watering because I'm using sterile soilless mix. I can use a watering can, no problem, getting the plants a little bit wet. And then if we look at the next size, and once you start hardening off plants, even before you transplant them, you don't start the clock of hardening off all over again once you separate them out. The plants will retain whatever hardening off characteristics they gain while being hardened off in mass. So it's a time saver. And this is maybe 2 years ago. These are looking really good. They haven't quite put out their true leaves yet, but they're living outside 24 hours a day. And that's a real relief when you're not moving these back and forth under lights and all that. You just got to make sure that the weather is cooperative. If we're going to have heavy rain, bring them in because, man, you can make a flat of dense planted seedlings look really ugly if they get rained on. And then you have to untangle them all because they do tend to. And then we look at the next slide. And this is where the fun begins. You separate them. You bring them in when you get your true leaves. That nice Metro mix or whatever you're using falls apart. Your seedlings all go into individual seedlings. You may need to tug a few. If you break a few roots, it's fine because anything you bury under the planting mix will root quickly. And then just when I get them into separate pots, and these are 3.5 inch plastic pots that are perforated in strips of 18 that fit beautifully in a web flat, and I buy those from Greenhouse, Megastore, or Superstore, or whatever. I get them in cases of 1,800 or 180 strips or something like that. But what I do once I transplant them is I leave them in the garage 3 or 4 days. Yeah, they're not in the sun, but those roots need to be able to stretch out, find the water them really well after you transplant them into dry medium, not pre-wet medium, because as you're pushing those little fragile seedlings in, if it's the nice fluffy mix, they'll go right in. If it's watered mix, the surface tension is really high and you can snap the stem off. So again, these are little things I've learned along the way. Next slide. Oh, we were out of order a little bit. So
Oops,
this,
sorry.
I did include no, this is my fault. I did include the process. These are at the bottom of my slide set. So there's the flat with the dry medium in it underneath my hands, and there's my little cluster of seedlings that I
And you
plopped
can see
out.
those stems are purple.
Yeah,
Look
yeah,
at
they're
that there, yeah.
purpley. Yep. And then if we look at the next slide, so you can see above slightly, I've got one plant laying on the mix. And then this one was laying in the mix, but I just took my finger and pushed it in, and you put it right up to the cotyledons because, and I plant peppers, eggplant, I plant everything deeply. You name it, lettuce, greens, kale, collards, chard, peppers, eggplants. Peppers and eggplants will root below the soil surface, but not as quickly as tomatoes. But what you're doing when you're doing the deep transplant is you're covering up the stem from any kind of, if it gets really windy, if it's too chilly, you're putting it in a nice snug environment. So that's kind of all there is to it. And then once you get them into the dry mix, you really got to water really, really well. I set them in the garage for 3 or 4 days. Maybe in the afternoon, I'll open the garage door just so they get a little filtered sunlight. And then once the weather's fine, they go out, and I have about a 99.8 success percent. So if I get 24 Cherokee purple seedlings and I transplant them, 23 will make it to full plants. One of them I may have broken the stem off or been a little too rough with. Once you get going, I can transplant 250 plants per hour. Now,
Wow.
because you just get used to it.
Mhm.
Find it?
The music's going, you got the beer going, a nice glass of wine. What I don't do is label them all at once. So let's say I've got a flat of 18 Cherokee Purple. I put one stick Cherokee Purple in, and then I set them aside. Then I have a day where it's labeling day. Nice day out, bring the pen out, bring the sticks, and then I'll just fill in all the ones that I haven't labeled before. Unless you want to break it up, do some transplanting and some labeling. But I like to do lots of transplanting, and then Sue comes out with me, and we each just label everything together. That may be it. Let's see what's next.
I pre-make my labels.
Uh, well,
Once they've germinated and I know how many I have, I'm gonna pre-make the labels. That way, when I sit down, all I
yeah,
have to do, because I can do that while I watch a TV
right.
show with Ben.
Yeah.
Sit there and
I do that
pretend like
also.
I'm
I
watching.
pre-label as well. It does take time.
Well, the problem
Yeah.
is, some years I had 8,000 labels to write
Yeah,
out.
I'm not making 8,000
No, no, no,
labels.
no, no. This is a picture of them all sitting in my garage in Raleigh. And I think what happened is they were all out in the driveway, and we were going on vacation for a week. And I found out that leaving them in my garage for a week with the door closed, it didn't hurt them at all. In fact, all of that warm, wet soil made it feel like a greenhouse in there, and it smelled wonderful, like when you walk into a commercial greenhouse.
Mhm.
And then I just brought them
Mhm.
outside, and everything was cool. So let's see if we got anything
No, I
else.
think that's it.
Good. So
Yeah.
that's like a primer on what I do, which means it may be totally different than what you do. What I do works for me. If what you do works for you, keep doing it. I
Right.
share this stuff just in case there are some little tips and tricks or ideas
Yeah,
that
like
you may want to
saran
incorporate.
wrap slip.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
a
would
good
never.
one.
That was
Yeah.
great.
The
Yeah, it's
which the
something
which
so
one?
small, but like when you
The
hear it, you're
saran wrap,
like,
flipping over the saran wrap.
It
when
works
you
so
flip
nice.
it,
Yeah,
it keeps
flipping it
the
every
moisture.
day is so good. And that way you don't get the fungus starting to grow. Now,
Mhm.
when you plant a lot of really old seeds, they actually will form little areas of mold because they're so old, they don't germinate. They
Mm.
just kind of rot. Doesn't hurt anything. It's, it's just the way it is. So I guess we
The
could
small
just,
seeds, Craig, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
oh no.
Smaller seeds, and some varieties have very small seeds. I've found that they often take longer to germinate. Is that yes?
I plant everything the same and everything germinates the same amount of time. So when you start seeing variations in germination time, small seeds can often be due to a fruit that was not totally ripe when it was harvested. And so the seeds are still alive, but it's a little bit tenuous, and those will take a little bit longer. So, for
Mhm.
example, the Captain F2s that I sent out, they were saved from tomatoes that I had to ripen indoors in a bag with apples. And it took about a month and a half. And I knew when saving them, they were not going to be great seeds. They're very small, and it's going to be touch and go. So it may not be that we get the answer to our question, what does the F2 generation of Captain look like this year, to the extent we'll get it next year when a lot of people grow out the hybrid in prime time of the season, save tons of seed, and then we can really dig into seeing what's in there next year. But yeah, small. Now here's a little anecdote. When we were doing on the Dwarf Tomato Breeding Project, Katrina would send me seeds, and it was the Sneezy family, and she sent me. She was working on Barossa Beauty, and the seeds looked so tiny. And I emailed her and said, "Are these seeds going to germinate?" And she said, "I don't know. They really were tiny." They did, and the seedlings were tiny.
Hmm.
It was just the weirdest thing I ever saw. But then I kept them healthy, and they grew into full-size plants. And those tiny seeds ended up leading to Dwarf Sweet Sue, Dwarf Kelly Green, and Dwarf Mr. Snow. So they were really important seeds, and I'm glad I
Right.
got them to. So they were responsible for three of our best tasting dwarf varieties. And if I would have looked at the seeds and not known this, I just would have said, these aren't going to grow. I'm just going to toss them. So you also may plant some big, plump, perfectly beautiful seeds that aren't going to germinate because they were over fermented, or whoever sent you the
Right.
seeds left them in the fermentation solution too long, and it essentially started germination while they were still in
Mm,
the cup. And once you dry them out, they're not going to
right.
restart. They're already gone. So you never know. It's like Russian roulette when you plant these seeds.
Jamie wants to know, would you recommend starting a bunch of seeds per pod in a hydroponic unit?
Oh gosh, it depends. You have to get them separated originally, but I've never done it. I'm not sure of the technique you would use. So, anytime someone comes up with what sounds like a good idea like this, I would say try it on a very small scale and let us know what you find. And that's how we discover these things. You know, when I first started talking about straw bale gardening and people would say, "That's a great idea. I'm going to get 60 bales." I would say, "No. Get one.
Hmm.
Get two. You should never waste good seed in a technique or good plants in a technique unless you know that it's going to work in your yard with your time under your care. And that's how we end up with all these different gardening techniques and all these things that work for different people. But I love that idea. I'd like to know how that works
I
out.
would I would say this about the hydro unit, that I did do like 3 to 4 seeds per pod last year. And I would say this, that if you do that, make sure that you get to them quickly. Once you see that little tail, get in there and remove it and put it in the soil, because once it starts to grow through whatever
It's
you
hard to
use,
separate.
cotton, or because I've used the cotton rolls, I've used the little brown, what do you call those things? They're like conical. And
Yeah, I
then
forget what they're called.
I haven't tried I've got something else right now that I haven't tried yet, but I bought it because I just wanted to see if it was better. Because I find, like, I don't know, those little pods that come with the hydro units, they just seem to stunt the growth of the roots of stuff. Like when you go to put it in like soil,
Mhm.
at least I found that my plants didn't do so great. And even when I went to take them out, and after they had died, the little pod was still like there, all like, I don't know, trapping the root. It just, but yeah, get them out of there and put them in soil before they start growing the roots through those pods. Otherwise, you're going to be tearing them up. I mean,
Mm.
they'd probably still be fine if
I've
you tear
always
up some roots.
I've always had the same problem with peat pots when they would say plant in a peat pot and just put
Uh,
the peat pot right in the garden.
Yeah,
I'm like, at the end of the year, why are the roots still within the confines of the
yeah.
peat pot?
yeah,
This
yeah. That's
sucks.
what I
See,
found with those pods.
Jen
Yeah,
and I have talked about this too. I do a different process for starting my
yeah.
seeds that works for me, but I go from like a solo cup basically, and then they go to like the seedling grow bags,
Yeah,
not grow bags, but
right.
the seedling grow bags.
Yeah.
And I never plant them in the ground, but one year because they claim they're biodegradable, which is
Right.
a complete lie. Maybe after 50 years, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just rip them right off and then plant in the ground.
I think they mean they're biodegradable if they're getting beaten by the sun all day long.
Probably.
Like, because
And
it's like the
when
same material. I know, right? It's like the same material that I cover plants with sometimes,
right,
and like you only get 1 year out of that. After the
Yeah.
sun has beaten it up, it just turns to dust. Well,
Yeah.
you're putting those in the dirt. They're
Yeah.
not going to be beaten
yeah.
up by the sun.
And there's no
It
No.
just
reason to at all. They rip off so easily. It's just,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, I know. Yeah,
yeah.
it's funny you mentioned the solo cups because when we first started selling seedlings, we were so amateur about it. We went to the farmer's market one day and we're looking for interesting seedlings. And I ran into the owner of the market and I said, "Why aren't there any different types of seedlings here except Better Boy and Celebrity?" He's like, "Why? Do you know? Do you have any?" I said, "Oh my God, have I?" So he said, "Well, come down some Saturday and see if they'd sell." So at that time, I was putting my seedlings in Dixie cups and we'd
Mhm.
punch the hole in the bottom with a pencil. And the other vendors at the market would kind of laugh at us. Oh, here come the Dixie cup people with their sad little plants. And at the end of the day, we were out, and they all still had their stuff. So we told them, but it's just a what I found about Dixie cups is if you have a lot of rain, the bottoms can get kind of nasty, or
Oh, I
your little
bet.
pencil hole can plug up, and all of a sudden you don't have drainage because it just reseals. So we learned a few things about Dixie cup gardening too. But
um, Kim has a question. How likely are natural crosses in the garden if you are growing several varieties and not isolating or bagging your blooms? I have heard both that it is not very likely and also that it is very common.
yes.
You said both. Two things can be
um,
true at once.
it is likely you will get crosses, and for the most part, tomatoes will self-pollinate the majority of the time, and it depends on the time of the year and of the local bee population, particularly wild bees. So you don't need bees to create tomatoes. That's I go online. I was reading something last night and they were talking about the benefit of companion plants around your tomatoes is to bring all the bees to your plant so that they pollinate them. Like, oh dear, but I'm not even going to go there with them. Um,
Got to pick your battles.
I don't pick any anymore. Those days, this see the beard, see the lack of hair. Those are the battles. Um, so if I make it a rule, I plant my plants 2 feet apart, 3 feet apart. I grow hundreds of varieties over the years. If you really focus on the first cluster, low down in the fruit, usually bees are not in your garden in May, and they're not interested in your tomato plants. So you have about a 99% chance of of them not being crossed. Now, if you wait until August and you're 6 feet off the ground, if you walk in your garden on a summer day, you can hear the hum, and the bees are just working your flowers like crazy. Usually the flower will do its thing before the bee gets to it, but you're probably looking at a 30% chance of getting cross seed if you're there. So it, if you are growing this really rare heirloom, that's hard to say 3 times fast, and you want to be 100% sure, get a little muslin bag or wedding uh, uh, candy bag or something, and before the flowers open, bag the blossom cluster, let the flowers do their thing. Once the little green tomatoes form, pull the bag off and mark it with a twisty tie, because every tomato in that cluster will be 100% uncrossed. It will be true. So there's different techniques. I like the timing technique because I don't have to fool with bagging a lot of blossoms, and it's worked really well for me. The way to tell would be to plant a potato leaf variety and have 3 regular leaf varieties around it, and then start saving seeds off the potato leaf. And you will see that if you save the first cluster, all your seedlings will be potato leaf. And as you go up the plant, the numbers of regular leaf will increase because it that it, the regular leaf is the dominant, and if the bees are taking pollen from a neighboring and put it on your tomato, it will show up as a regular leaf variety amongst your potato leaf. So that's a nice experiment to run. Save tomatoes from a potato leaf plant at different parts of the plant as they grow, and measure the percentage of crossing in your garden, because that's even going to
Oh,
be somewhat specific to the types of bees that you have, whether they be wild bees Anyway, see, every tangents. I'm Dr. Tangent.
Oh,
I'm
believe me,
taking this.
Jen and
I'm
I
like,
are queens of tangent.
I'm like thinking YouTube video.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I could like do that over the course of a season. Just be like, okay, now I'm going to take tomatoes from this part of the plant, and then we're going to save seeds. It'd
You
be a
should do it.
long video,
It would
but
be
it would
fun,
be
but also
interesting.
doing controlled studies in the garden is always a good idea at Christmas, and always a terrible idea when you're in the middle of
You're
canning
trying to
Thanksgiving.
If you're just joining us, we have Craig LeHoullier here. He's the co-founder of the Dwarf Tomato Project, author of 2 books, including Epic Tomatoes. We're talking about tomato seed starting. Um, John Kramer is giving away 2 copies of Craig's book, a hard copy and a paperback copy. Thank you, John, so much. So type in hashtag tomato in the comments and we'll do a drawing. I'm also giving away some seeds as well. We have 161 live viewers.
Wow.
Keep
And
showing up.
as always,
Hello, everyone.
whoever gets the books, let me know, because they will get a signed book plate and 6 varieties of tomato seed.
Oh, thank you,
Oh,
Craig. That's so
nice
generous.
to you. Thank you.
All right, let's get back to some of these questions. Mike, hi, Mike. When mass planting, at what stage do you separate them?
I think it's really good to let them to get a little bit of heft to the stem diameter and maybe the first set of true leaves. Although the more experienced you are with it and the more gentle hand you have with it because you've done it a lot, you can get away with separating them just at the cotyledon stage. It's just that the younger you transplant them, the more fragile they'll be and the more chances there'll be you lose a few. Whereas if you let them get to the true leaf stage. So one of the things I do that allows for delaying things, let's say you've got these clusters of seedlings, they've got true leaves, they're starting to really fill out. You can pluck that cluster, get your 18 strips of pots or even any types of pots, and get a pot that's about twice the diameter of your cluster, and then you just tuck it in and surround it with dirt, and now you've bought yourself an extra 2 weeks. That cluster of tomatoes will continue to grow, but there's no rush now because that extra soil in that pot allows more moisture. You're watering it more, and it gives more room for the seeds to for the roots to spread. So I'll often do that when I start transplanting. The most advanced ones I'll start transplanting right away, but then I'll start tucking the ones that I haven't gotten to yet in their own little pot, which does buy me that 1 or 2 weeks. I just thought about it one day. It's like, why don't I do this? Because it was more like, you dumbass, why haven't you been doing this all along? But sometimes things don't come to you right away that are just so
Mhm.
obvious.
And then
And
when they do, it's just like, whoa. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, this has
Well,
bought me 2 extra weeks. And it's just
yeah.
the other thing let's say I grow a variety and it's just not doing that well. So instead of starting it indoors, I've actually just filled up a flat and direct seeded outside. I use the same technique, only maybe plant a little deeper and don't put the plastic on top. Bring them in if it rains, but just germinate them outside. They harden off
Mhm.
as they grow. And those varieties that it's like winter sowing. And the varieties that are really sensitive to temperature and like the yellow oxheart types, they never get the crud. And so that's how I rescue a lot of varieties is by direct seeding outdoors a little bit later in the season.
I
That's
was
not
looking in the back of your book, and you've got a great Q&A section back here. Um, and there was one we were talking about hardening off and all of that. Somebody you asked if
yeah.
putting a fan on your
Yeah.
ceilings. Do you recommend that? Is it good for?
It can hurt, and it all depends on what the airflow like is in the room, and if you have a real moist environment, a fan will dry your foliage off, which will make them less likely to have spores that are blowing through adhere to them. It can make the stems a little bit tougher. And by doing the outside hardening off like I've been doing and not having them under the lights quite as much, I'm actually doing that. Only nature is the fan
Right.
because there's very rarely days in Hendersonville where we don't have some kind of a breeze blowing. And you reminded me of something else. I also have a really huge FAQ on my website. If you go to any page of craiglehoulier.com and go to the bottom, I have an FAQ that is broken down into the different steps. And
Right.
it's funny. My wife used to say, "Just send when you get your emails, just send everybody the FAQ." And I'm like, "Well, that's no fun. I'm gonna answer everybody's question, and then but it's there. If people stumble upon it, it's great." My daughter is visiting from Seattle, who built the website for me, and I told her this website's about 8 years old now. Let's look at it and see if we can refresh it anywhere. And so we may fiddle around with some things, but who knows? Anyway, what else we got for questions?
Another thing you can do is just your hand. Just when they've
Yep.
popped up, just run your hand across them and pretend your hand is the wind. And
Yeah.
that'll help
Yeah.
strengthen them too.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to smack them. You just want to lightly and it's kind of soothing too. You're like, oh, my
Oh yeah, it
babies.
feels nice, and you get that nice smell. I love the smell of tomato seedlings.
Uh-huh.
It's
Me
like rub
too.
your hand on basil or rosemary. Don't do what the guy on the Instagram. There is some bad tomato advice Instagram videos, and there's one where somebody
Yeah.
has all their seedlings, and they're like taking a rake and beating the
I
shit out of
saw
them and stuff.
that.
And I
And
just
then
find it my
somebody last year was like cutting them, right, Jen?
what I
They
usually
were
do
What?
is
like,
I
Oh,
just
I did that
somebody
last
last year was
year where you
cutting
topped
them.
them, like you
oh
topped your
Yeah.
pepper plants. I did that experiment last year.
Yeah.
I didn't notice anything.
no.
It was just fun to try.
What I usually do is I don't put a lot of detail. I'll just put in a comment that says bad idea. And then and nobody's ever come back to me to question why I thought it was a bad idea. But
I think
all
this is
right.
the comment I
Yeah, yeah,
earlier about I have a tray of tomatoes that are all purple. Will they recover in time? Should I keep them outside or have them
yeah.
on a heat mat inside to warm them up?
They'll be fine. And as soon as they get outside and the sun hits them and the temperature's warm, they'll green right up. They're actually kind of pretty when they're purpley like that. Um,
They are pretty. Hi, Malachite Jen. Glad you're here with us.
I've sent Malachite Jen some seeds. Hey, Jen, how are you doing?
Yeah.
How many people? I'm looking. I didn't look at all the names. I'm wondering how many people watched my Instagram live today. And
Oh, yeah. If you watch Craig's Instagram today, drop right in the comments.
the thing is, you guys know, only about 20 or 30 people actually sit there when it's running because it's
Right.
3 in the afternoon. But by the end of the week, you find out that 1,200 people have watched it.
Right.
So it's the fact that you can save reels on Instagram is really, really good. Now that I know how to do it, so that I don't
Yeah.
forget.
I
The
was happy
worst,
to see that. I missed it. I missed it live by 4 minutes. And then
yeah,
I
it's there.
forgot all about it. So I was glad to catch it.
They're there all the way back to January 2020, the COVID episodes where we were talking about sewing masks and wearing masks and all the
Yeah.
how it was affecting our gardening and stuff. So yeah,
And
it's
thank you for your
It's
kind
been
words about our show and Jen and
5 years.
I today.
oh
I'm
yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
Jen.
You
I
believe that?
interrupted Jen. What were you
Was
going to
that
say, Jen? I'm sorry.
I was just saying it's been 5 years since that. Can you believe that? Like March is the month where
I
it all
know.
went to shit.
it, it, and we know it because we love to go see live music, and each year the amount of live music in Hendersonville and Asheville just increases. So it's like we're going to 1 or 2 or 3 concerts every month right now. Little venues, like only 100 seats, so you could like shake the hand of the person playing. It's just so nice to get out there and do that. So that's my other secret, not so secret passion is music. Aside from
I was bummed. I'm a huge Duran Duran fan, and
ah,
in Destin, which is where I was just with my parents. Next week, they're having a Duran Duran cover, not Duran Duran, but a Duran
right.
Duran cover band. You could see them for like $30. I'm like, that would have been cool.
So I'm trying to think. Duran Duran, is that kind of new wave
Yeah,
era?
the new wave. Yeah, it was
Yep.
1983.
So
Came
I'm
out.
big. I'm big
Hungry Like
talking
the
head.
Wolf,
Yep.
Rio. Yeah, Girls on Film.
I'm big Talking Heads.
Oh yeah.
Cocteau
Oh,
Twins. So I listen to a lot of the shoegaze bands, My Bloody Valentine, and all that stuff. So
Um,
now my current favorite is Sharon Van Etten, and
oh, I've heard that
she
name.
is so good. So I'm
Yeah,
listening to her new album a lot, but there's just too much right now.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Uh,
And
should
Bill
we get,
Yoder's naming all these collections he has after '80s music, which is kind of
yeah.
he's got a new Billy Idol
Oh
one
gosh.
he's coming out with, and of course I'm growing a lot of his Duran Duran ones for this growing season.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. Is Bill on?
I don't know if he's on tonight, Bill. If
I
you're
haven't seen
on,
him. But
say
hello
hi.
anyway. Did have a phone conversation. No, we didn't. We need to have one. I actually had one with Dan Follett, who's a micro guy, but I haven't had one with Bill yet.
And speaking of micros, Chef DL Turner, hi Chef. Did not know there was micro dwarf tomatoes till watching this channel a couple of weeks ago. I now have 20 varieties with another 15 coming.
People have
Excellent.
sent me about 50 varieties of micros, so I am going to have
I
to.
keep meaning to send you some too. I've
Oh,
been bad.
Lynn
Oh,
Wicker,
Linda Wicker Downing.
Wicker Downing. She's filled me up.
She's
Jen, I
amazing.
think you may have sent me some.
Oh,
I've got some. My
she's
goal
amazing.
this year is to start developing a fuzzy dwarf, not a fuzzy
I saw you
determinate,
talk about that on
not a fuzzy
Instagram
micro,
today.
but a
Yeah.
fuzzy dwarf. So I've got the fuzzy pink and the fuzzy purple that I'm going to grow, and then I've got
Cool.
dwarfs, and I'm going to just start. So the next year when we talk, I'll be asking who wants to volunteer to help me
Yes.
find.
Me,
You will
I
definitely
love
get some.
fuzzy
And you
foliage,
are right. I
fuzzy
don't think there
dwarf.
is a fuzzy dwarf, but there are some,
There's a
not
dwarf
necessarily
called the
fuzzy, there's fuzzy
but I
mini
don't think
dwarfs.
Yep, funny micros.
the plant itself is fuzzy. I think just the fruit is fuzzy on the
On which one?
fuzz. It's called the fuzz.
The
I
fuzz.
grew it last year. It's a dwarf. I had it in my dwarf
Okay.
bed. I can't remember. I don't think the foliage was fuzzy. It was just the fruit, if I
Yeah.
recall.
Interesting.
Yeah, it looked like a peach, and it was real cute.
Oh,
But I don't
it
think.
was a peach family type. Yeah, I tried that. I tried crossing Sutton, peach blow Sutton with Sweet Sue, and the combination of dwarf fuzzy is really hard to find. Dwarf
Hmm.
with fuzzy fruit. So I haven't found that yet. I do have chartreuse variegated dwarf. I don't know what it's going to fruit like, but
Ooh,
we're
We
finding
love
I
that.
want
it.
that.
Hi, Michael.
It's a white times a pink, so the colors could
Oh,
be interesting in there. We'll have whites and pinks and other things.
Exciting.
so
Any
much.
other questions people have for me?
Yeah, speaking of crosses, this came from a member of our group who couldn't be here for the live. He's overseas. He wanted to know green copia, which was bred by Jeff Dawson. He wants to know it's a cross of green zebra and Marvel stripe. He wanted me to ask you if it has a dominant green gene for an F1. I guess he's
To get an F1, to get an F1 hybrid, you'd need to cross a green times a green. So the only way to get a green flesh tomato is to cross a green with a different color, and then you will have greens coming off. So I crossed yellow white, which was also known as Viva Lindsay's Kentucky heirloom, just a big ivory colored tomato from 1922, the Martin family. It was a wedding present. I crossed that with Beryl Beauty, which is one of our green dwarfs. And Phil's Ivory Beauty, which we've released, is a white from it. And Sarah's Alala Emerald is a green from it. But everything was whites and greens, which is kind of interesting. When you start taking some of the colors, so you know that if you know orange is recessive and yellow is recessive and green's recessive and white's recessive, what if you start crossing each of those colors together is where it gets interesting, because then you start seeing between orange and yellow, which is recessive, have to do the crosses to figure it out. And sometimes you do that cross and you get a red, meaning genetics isn't as straightforward as you think it is. So
no, it's not. I'm
now
finding that out. It's a lot of fun and very interesting.
you always find unexpected things.
Malachi Jen says getting an envelope in the mail from Craig was the highlight of my year.
Oh, God. Well, we need some more highlights for you, my dear. Maybe I'll roast some coffee and send it to you. That's really
Sam, I'm guessing that she may have found a dwarf that is fuzzy, maybe Velvet Dude. I'm not familiar with that one.
I'll have to look that up. Good. I'm
I
sure
have
that,
seeds for it.
Do you?
let me
I
look
don't.
up.
Is it a dwarf or a mini dwarf? I thought I have it in my pile of
I
like
don't think
micro
it's a
minis.
mini dwarf. I'm pretty
Right.
up on those things. There are fuzzy mini dwarfs, so like Allure, Fuzzy Baby. Um,
Mhm.
but maybe I don't know.
Velvet
I think I'm
Dude.
growing velvet dude this year. But I'm not sure. I haven't even picked all my seeds yet out.
Yeah, it looks like there's only one listing for it from Europe. So anyway, we're doing live research right here on my
It's
Pixel.
the best.
Uh,
Roots, Hearts, and Wings. Hi, thanks for watching Roots, Hearts, and Wings. Craig, do you still straw bale garden?
that is probably 80 to 90% of my gardening. I have just fallen in love with it. in Raleigh, I was primarily a container gardener. Once I had to leave the soil because of the tree growth, I wasn't getting the sun. Since you moved to Hendersonville, I'm finding the yield, the timing. So when you can plant bean seeds in a straw bale and 37 days later start harvesting beans, or 38 days later start harvesting summer squash, the heat generated by the bales just really makes things work great. Tomato yields are excellent, pepper yields, eggplant yields, cucumber yields. Yeah, I'm sold. So you buying a $7 or $8 bale sounds like a lot, but it's two 20-gallon containers capacity. And if you think what it would cost to get two 20 gallons worth of good quality potting mix, plus the next year you've got all this wonderful mulch that you can grow potatoes or garlic or other things in. So it works for me. I don't mind doing the 2 week prep. It's kind of fun. And then it's just so much fun. I love it. So
For
yeah.
those of you that may not be aware, this is Craig's other
Oh,
book,
there it is.
Vegetables and Straw Bales, Easy Planting.
I am going to try again this year.
Yeah.
Are you going to try again, Jen?
I'm going to try again this year doing it. I think I just ignored them a little too much with our heat and drought. It just wasn't conducive to growing stuff.
You're really doing something every day with straw bales. I mean, each and every day you're watering or you're feeding or you're staking or you're prepping. But I'm a retired guy. I can do that. So it's
I mean, they started out like with a bang, but then we started to get super hot and there was no rain, and then I just got burnt out with trying to do everything, and I was just like, that's got to go.
Yeah.
So I'll try again next year. That'll be some beautiful mulch later on.
So Deb says, and I see Cindy C from Philippines said the same thing. They grew 2 plants of velvet June. Both were 3 feet tall. So
what was the fruit and the fruit size and the fruit color? Just out of curiosity.
And Cindy says the same thing. Yeah, if either one of you can answer that question, fruit size and color. And Sam says she has extra seeds for you if you need them, Craig.
No, I'm going to, this is where I want to be the mad scientist and make one. Because what I found online, it looked like they were smaller red fruit, but we'll have to see.
Heidi, becoming a green stalker, doesn't the straw attract mice?
Not for me, and not when you've got dogs and cats. So straw bales can attract red ants, which they've never done for me, snakes, which they haven't done for me, rabbits, which have occurred for me. So when I was taking down my straw bales, a whole family ran out, and unfortunately my dog Coda said supper, and that was that. Yeah, a 60-pound dog can take care of
I don't want to hear this story.
So we went to the vet and said, our dog ate a rabbit. Do we have anything to worry about? He said, I hope he enjoyed it. No, that's what happens in the wild. So you can attract mice. I guess it depends. Hopefully there'd be other critters around that would be after the mice as well. But yeah, I've never had problems with any critters of any kind disrupting my straw bales. That's in Raleigh on a concrete driveway, in Raleigh in a dirt garden, and in Hendersonville on my back lawn.
Linda Perkle wants to know, Craig, how do you make sure your straw bales are not contaminated with grazon?
Well, for one thing, I've heard that hay is much more likely to be contaminated than wheat straw. So that's one good piece of good news. The other is to try any new source that you haven't used before. If they can't guarantee you that they're organic, then try 1 or 2 bales. And so we have a place here, Briggs, right down the road, and this is my 6th year using them. I've probably used 250 straw bales, and they've all grown my plants great. So it's if they can't tell you that it doesn't have it, then you need to just try one. Maybe test grow some fast growing plants in it that are susceptible to that herbicide. Yeah. And then see if
beans is the one to test to see if like your soil.
Oh, really?
Beans in there, they drip real quickly, and then they look rough really quickly if it's got grays on.
Yep. So that's kind of what you do.
Brandy Murphy says, I try to have as many methods as I can handle. This year it'll be raised beds, in ground with trellises, without trellises, in shade, medium light, full sun, and this year I'm adding straw bales.
Good.
Oh,
I'll buy your book when it comes out.
And
'Cause there's a lot of
Jerry's going to
information
try a
in there.
straw bale this year too. Hey, Jerry.
Yeah,
oh,
and
cool,
I'm
Jerry.
only an email away, and I'm an Instagram live every week away. So if you try it, get on and ask me questions each Friday, or after the fact, you can just post a comment to that reel, or just drop me an email if you have any questions along the way. It's one, I think once you get it, if you get it. So not everybody, you could have 15 different gardening techniques and not everyone's going to love all 15. But if you're one of the people that really resonates with straw bale gardening, you really will enjoy it. And my big
I'm going
thing
to
this
get it.
year, I'm
I
going to
swear.
I'm doing I'm going to try corn. I'm going to push 4 straw bales together, and I'm going to put
Wow.
3-inch layer of potting mix on top after I treat them. And I'm going to do 4 rows, 2 in each, and then I'm going to put 8-foot stakes at the 4 corners and just string twine up to keep everything upright.
Cool.
And I'll be showing that all year long, I'm sure, as it
Well, we can't wait to
I can't
follow
wait
along.
for that.
I love corn, and I
I
haven't
got to
made.
master the tomato first.
I
Oh
don't
well,
think we ever master the tomato. It's an ever evolving learning process, isn't it?
yeah, I would say I'd rank tomatoes in my gardening love. Tomatoes would be number one, beans
Oh,
number
for sure.
two, probably peppers and eggplant tied 3, 4. Cukes are in there as well. Melons are the toughest nut for me to crack. I can get them to grow. Pests get at them. They get mildew. They're unripe
Yeah, I've kind of
one
given up on
day.
melons
They're
myself.
overripe the next day.
Same.
Yeah.
They're a pain in the.
Like now, I just put seeds in the dirt, and I'm just like, okay, well, I've got the seeds. So if I don't plant
I
them,
do
it
the
ain't gonna
same.
I go
work.
down.
But if I get something, great. If I
Yeah.
don't, whatever.
I go down to the road to the market, and when they've got their ambrosias and their seedless sugar babies, I'm like,
Mm.
that's what I'm talking
Mhm.
about.
Yeah,
And we just
yeah. It's
load
much
up.
less effort to just say, "Here's my $20. I'll take it."
Yeah,
When Craig says to email him, he's actually serious.
Yes.
You can find him
Mhm.
on CraigLeHoullier.com and on Instagram at NCTomatoman. He's just what you see is what you get with Craig, as genuine,
Wes,
authentic as possible. And
Wes.
he answers
Oh,
you
good.
and your emails and is happy to answer any questions.
I talk endlessly. I talk about anything, so it's hard to shut me up.
That's why we love you.
Exactly.
Just what time do you guys want to run to tonight?
Just 10 more minutes.
That's great.
I got a comment I got to put up.
I've got to
We're
cook
It says,
dinner.
"Hey,
we're going to go continue watching.
Caleb and Brian." That's my family. I
We
love
go
you.
we go and continue binging Silent Witness. We love it. It's a British crime drama, and
Oh, really?
there are 29 seasons of it.
Silent Witness?
Silent, and it's all about.
I love British shows and I love
Yeah. Well,
British crime dramas.
they find a dead body because something's happened, and then it's the
Oh, I
group
love
that
crime shows.
it's the group that studies the dead body to figure out the murder, working the police how it
I'm gonna
happened,
love
and
this.
it's
All right,
so
I made a
great.
note of it.
Yes, it's
29
totally,
seasons.
yeah, 29 seasons,
Yeah,
and it's
Okay,
and
so
it's still
I
on.
don't have to watch something. Sometimes I'll just listen to it.
what
Yeah,
was the
yeah.
one with
So
Helen
with
Mirren?
gardening,
Prime
Oh,
Suspect?
we've watched that all through
I love
twice.
that one.
The other one is Unforgotten.
I've watched that one
Ah,
too with
we love, yeah.
Nicola Walker.
She is like the best.
She's the
Yeah,
best.
yeah,
I love British TV and
yeah,
The Brits like their crime
yeah.
dramas, that is for sure. So I'm in heaven.
How about the one that happened in World War II with Michael Kitchen? What is he's the one that was in Enchanted April, and I've got to think of the name of Inspector Foyle. That is
Oh,
great.
I have it on my queue, but I haven't
It
watched that one.
We've
Is it
watched
good?
that all through twice.
Yeah.
It is so addictive. So we're not talking about tomatoes here now. We could talk about what's the website, Rotten Tomatoes, where these shows will all be listed. Uh,
Francis says, Craig, I've got a patio and a bottle of bourbon if you want to talk tomatoes in South Alabama tonight.
Oh, I'll tell you, man. I have met so many nice people through doing this over the last 4 years. So, my friend Missy, who we've emailed back and forth,
Yep.
and Jen, and just so many. And the hardest thing with Instagram is you get the username, and it takes you so long to figure out who is
I
this person
know.
really? What is their real name? And so you can start
Even
when they
here on
join.
YouTube, sometimes the
Yeah,
channel that they
it's
have, you don't see the name. Terry Lever says Shetlander. That's another one that's on my queue that I haven't
Yeah.
watched yet. Foyle's War.
well. I got to.
I thought
I'm
you
gonna put.
said
I'm
Shitlander.
sorry.
No, that's what I said before we went live, isn't it?
I over put this comment on yours. I'm sorry about
Yeah.
that, Lauren. It's called tickling your plants. Just don't make it weird, Francis said.
And my ceilings get a lot of music because we literally our Alexa is going 24 hours a day. We sleep to it. We put ambient music on all night. It's playing radio or music all day. So our plants are, you know, and Eli is going to have
Maybe that's why they're so happy.
he's going to be going to concerts with us, and yeah. So
Oh, that's it. Both of my kids are musical, and that's because we always did mommy and me music stuff when they were little.
yep.
I'm convinced of it. I'm just going back. I had put some
Hmm.
stars next to some comments. I want to make sure we have everything. Cynthia says, "I'm so glad I didn't miss this show. I still haven't started my seeds, and I was starting to feel behind. I feel better now."
But that's a tip.
Yes.
We need to get
Later is better.
back. So what happens when you have leggy seedlings? Um,
Right.
So if I were to leave those seedlings behind me too long, they would just with window light, they would probably be 3, 4, or 5 inches long, and they'd bend all the way to the shelf and be really, really spindly. So that's one reason you want to wait until it's time, until you're about 2 months from planting. But a spindly seedling, I have taken sun golds that are in a 3-inch pot that I've forgotten to transplant, and they're 3 feet tall and they have hardly any leaves on them. And I've taken the top 6 inches, stuck it in dirt, put it in the shade, watered it well, it re-roots, and you get a full plant out of it. You can always rescue seedlings. So if you
Hmm.
start too soon, don't worry about it. If a cutworm cuts off your plant in the garden and it's still morning, it's laying there, bring it in, cut a little snip at the bottom, stick it in a glass of water, re-root it, your plant will be fine. So tomatoes are so resilient. Rarely do you have to give up on it, and it's usually a really bad disease like late blight, fusarium wilt, tomato spotted wilt, and that's not your skill as a gardener talking. That's just the environment. These diseases are around. They decided to come in and invade your garden. So always face the seed with lots of confidence. This is going to be great, and know that half the time you're going to be totally wrong. It will not be great. It will be
And have
good.
fun. It's
It will be
supposed to be
fair.
fun.
Mhm.
Enjoy the
You'll
journey.
learn so
Right.
much in those years that aren't great. Like last year
Yeah,
was my worst year ever. I've only been gardening for 5 or 6 years, so I
that's
haven't even been
amazing.
doing it that long. But last year I just learned, how to
Oh,
take a
yeah.
punch, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the weather. It's, when you start getting
Mhm.
these rainstorms that drop 3 inches of rain on you in 30
Right.
minutes,
Or none whatsoever for 2
or
months
none
straight.
whatsoever.
Absolutely not.
Last year was a tough year for so many
Deer,
all over the
deer,
world.
that can eat
Kina in
anything.
Oh,
Norway
yeah.
got so much rain and it was cold and it was like everywhere. We had a drought like Jen.
Yeah.
Um, Although my tomatoes did well in the
Drought
drought.
and deer.
I saw
Yeah, you had the deer.
I saw a really scary map on ProPublica where they looked forward about to 2040, 2050, where the prime growing zone in this country is going to move up towards Pennsylvania westward. And we down here are just going to
Mm.
have a very difficult time growing anything very
Ooh.
well. So we're at a very interesting place in time, and the reason it's important to make observations and to be flexible and change every year is because the weather is going to be different every year. And you know, I've said this so many times. If you make a plan at Christmas and you start that plan when you plant your first seed, you can probably throw the plan away because it's going to be different. It's going to
Yep.
be different weather. You're going to be on vacation at different times. Your kids are going to need different things. It Gardening teaches you to be flexible. It teaches you to wake up depressed because your seedling died. I mean, it teaches you so many of these things. You become involved with your plants.
It's true. When you nurture from
Yeah,
the moment it's a seed,
Mhm.
I've
yeah,
gone away on vacations before where things didn't die, but they weren't looking so good. And I panic and I freak
yep.
out. And my family laughs at me every time I do this. And it always ends up fine. But even if it doesn't,
I
like
know.
Jen said, she had a her deer got all of her plants last year after
Yep,
the drought.
You
And it,
learn, you learn from that.
Mother Nature, we can do everything we can to nurture and use the best soil and all of
yep,
that. But
yeah,
really, Mother Nature is the master. And
yep.
we
So
can't.
what you've created here, what I do with my Instagram lives, these are gardener support groups. This is
Yeah.
not my name is Craig, my name is John. This is
Yeah.
I have an issue with my plants. What can you guys do to help? What can I learn from you? What can you learn from me? And that
Right.
very few hobbies offer that. So for what you two are doing, thank you so much. It's really important.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Craig.
We're
That's really
getting
nice.
a
Yes.
lots of thanks for you, and from us as well. Hi, Iris.
Yes.
Yeah, lots of thanks. This was a great live, said Susan Cooper. All
I
right, let's
am
give
very
away some
thankful
prizes.
for all your knowledge.
Me too.
What's that?
Me too.
Yeah. I said I'm very thankful for all the knowledge that you're so willing to just freely share with us. It's wonderful. Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
what knowledge is for. And, it's you learn so you can pass it on. And,
But not everybody thinks that way, and we're very
Yeah.
grateful that you do.
well, we just don't become friends with them.
Right.
That's right.
Right. We've learned that, haven't we, Jen?
Mhm.
All
Yeah.
right, let's give away. We'll
Yeah.
give away a couple of Craig's. Oops, here we go. A couple of Craig's
Yay.
books. Thank you, John Kramer. Hang on, let me start
Yes,
this
thank you,
over.
John. That's so generous of you.
Hang on,
Again.
let me. Yes, every month, every month.
Every month. He's the
And it's
sweetest, most generous.
and so Craig is going for these winners. He's going to give away signed book plates and seeds
Yep.
as well. And thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let me restart this. All right, the first one will be the hardcover edition. Let's go.
Oh,
Is
that's
it weird that I want the hardcover too, even though I have the
No, I do too. I think we said this last time too. Terry Ernst.
and
Hi, Terry.
and does the hay bale or the straw bale one come in hardcover? Because I'd get that too.
no, it's just, the story, I think they're discontinuing that basic gardening series, but I like it. I think it's a really nice one because you don't have to pay a lot for the books and you get a
Yeah,
lot of
it's a
information
cute
in it.
little thing.
It's a cute little thing.
Yeah,
Um,
I like it.
Just
I
like
read
Eli.
it.
Eli's a
I'm
cute.
gonna read it again. I'm gonna read it again because I'm like, I'm gonna get this. I'm going to get this year. This will be my third year trying straw. Well, I think I tried hay bales the first year. That
Yeah,
was the first
that's not gonna be
problem.
good.
That that's a totally different medium.
Yeah.
Okay, you want straw, and I will still say hay bale gardening
Yep.
in my videos. Like
A lot
these
of
are my
people
hay
do.
bales.
Yep.
They're not hay bales. They're straw bales.
easy mistake.
Just can't get it.
Congratulations to Terry Ernst. She won the hardcover from John Terry. I don't know if you're in the Facebook group, you can private message me and I'll get you in touch with John. If you're not in the Facebook group, let me give you my email address. Here it is, lernie@me.com. I think you're in the group. Congratulations, and then we'll get you a signed book plate to put in that book, and Craig's going to give you some seeds as well. So please give me your address.
If you're
Congratulations! Let's give
any
away the. Sorry, go ahead.
here's something I just thought about. If anybody wins this book that has this book and you want to gift it, let me know and I will assign the book
Oh,
plate to whoever gets it, but you keep the seeds.
very nice. Thank you. I hadn't even thought of that, but yeah, a lot of people do have the book. Of course, they should. It's the Bible for
Oh,
tomato lovers.
I think we just had a post. Someone had just gotten it, like on TLC. Someone
Yeah,
posted that they just got it, and I'm just like, oh, it's never going to get old. Like
Justin Arnold. This is for the soft
best book.
cover.
not
Congratulations, Justin.
not everybody's got it yet
Congratulations,
because I'm
Justin.
not making as much money as Stephen King. He
Well,
sells books.
you got to write that other book.
Yeah. You don't write a book to make money. You write a book.
No,
Somebody who said to me once, when you write a book,
Fair again.
you have a fancy business card, which gives you access to give talks and to share information.
yeah,
It's very, very true.
yeah. Congratulations, Justin and Terry. And then I'm going to give away 2 packs of some of my favorites of the year, including Red Trash Panda, which I have not grown. This is from Shorty's Funny Farm. It's a variety that she found in her burn pile a couple of years ago that she's been
Oh, I love that.
stabilizing. So I'm going to give away 2 packs of this bacon lettuce and this Nano's Meatball Dwarf Pixie Fire, which is from Terra Nova Farms, grew it last year. Chinese Princess, Jarson 10 Tricolor, Carl's Emsland Traube, and a pepper. Oh, I meant to show you pictures, and a Tumaticot, which is a great
Wow,
apple that I grew last year. I'm going to give
that's
away.
a really nice package.
Well, I'm back from vacation. I'm feeling relaxed, and nope, that's
You
not.
are ready to go.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go get overwhelmed again. All right, that didn't work.
Yep.
All right.
Any
So we'll
brand.
give away 2 of these. Hang on. Don't ignore this, what you're seeing. That's an old one. Where's
I was
our
going to say,
giveaway?
where did Craig go?
I'm here.
Oh,
You
here it is. All right,
disappeared.
bacon lettuce in this. Nanos meatball dwarf.
Hmm.
Oh, I've got my first nanos right here. I got to taste test it. There's
Ooh,
nanos.
you haven't. Oh, yours didn't work last year, right? Oh, it's delicious.
No, it didn't. The deer ate it.
Oh.
Chinese princess,
Uh-huh.
which was a great one last year. Jarson 10. I named it tricolor,
Yep.
Craig, because it's not stable. This is the red trash
Oh,
panda
pretty.
from Brooke from Shorty's Funny Farm.
Wow.
Look at the inside of that.
Yeah.
Oh my
I know.
goodness. Oh,
Carl's Ensign
Carl's
Childa
fruit.
from our friend Tim. And this is the pepper, my favorite
Oh
pepper
yeah.
that I discovered last year. It's from Slow Arc Food of Taste from Italy to Maticot. So I'll give away 2 of these, and
Yeah.
then we're all done.
That looks like a pimento type pepper, really thick walls, really sweet.
Yeah, delicious.
So my biggest tomato mystery in this is I read Sue books, and we love Agatha Christie. So I was reading her you may have seen this in some of the stuff. So I was reading her an Agatha Christie book, and at the end of chapter 2, I looked down and there was a dry tomato seed on the page.
That happens to me
No.
all the
And
time.
then I looked at the end of chapter 3, and there was another dry. So I'm calling it Agatha, and
Oh, I saw that.
they germinated.
I
And
saw that. How
so
cool.
it's probably, somebody chomping a sub while they were reading Agatha Christie, went the
I
seed.
find tomato seeds in some really strange places. We did an escape room with my parents a couple
Yeah.
days ago, and it was Murder on the Orient Express, another
Yep.
Agatha Christie.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll all get to see what that tomato is going to do.
Yeah, that'll be fun. All right, so the 2 winners of these seed packs, real quick, and then we're going to sign off. Thank you all for being here live. Linda Wicker Downing, our friend.
My
I
micro
think we were up
draw,
to like
generous
6.
seed giving
She
friend.
is the most generous. And Linda, I think you probably have all of these, so you and I will work something out. And second winner, Eric Mooney. Congratulations, Eric. Private message me your address. If you have any of these, we'll work something out. So that's it, gang. Craig LeHoullier, thank you again for being with us.
Yes,
It's
thank
always a
you.
blast
Thank
with
you.
you.
Fastest 90 minutes in the universe.
It really is.
It was a
It
lot of
really
fun. I
is.
Yes.
appreciate the
Mhm.
invitation to come, and thanks everybody for joining. And I'm at the end of
Anytime.
an email if you
Anytime.
have any questions. Good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. And Craig, you're welcome back anytime. You know that.
We'll be talking.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Sounds good.
Peace,
Bye-bye.
love,
Bye.
get your gratitude on
Enjoy
Go
your
Grow
day.
Tomatoes. Bye, gang.
Ginger.
Bye.